up, everybody? I'm Monochrome Sweatsuit, and today I am making Witch House. The phrase witch house was first coined in 2009 by producer Picture Plane, who was actually joking when he first used the term. He described the style of music as occult-based house music, and then jokingly, witch house ended up sticking. There's several big artists within that style of music, like Crystal Castles, Purity Ring, Salem, Crimes, White Ring, Plagues. Out of all those groups, the one that I'm the most familiar with is Crystal Castles. So I decided to try and make a Crystal Castles type beat. And this video is directly inspired by Julian Earle's How to Witch House video, which came out recently. All his videos are really great. So if you want good music production tips, you could also go check out Julian's channel. He's got amazing information. Let's get going on this beat. I started off with drums, and I have a trap drum thing going on in the front section. It's a combination of one shots, some MIDI programming, and loops. So here's the A beat. Nothing too crazy, kind of a standard fare trap beat with another thing going on top of it, which I have labeled as like the effects kit. And what this is basically, I split it up into different tracks. You could also do this in a single drum rack if you wanted. I have a composite of a bunch of one-shot noises to patterns that are similar, but never the same, and they don't repeat across one instrument. So that kit by itself sounds like this. So a lot of like collision, one-shot noises, things that don't really sound like a drum kit on their own. But when you combine it with the other drum kit that we have, you get this very big, spacious. It feels more like it's occupying a physical space now. Like it feels a little bit more 3D. This beat has like basically two sections. It has one section that kind of repeats itself with some stuff missing. And in the middle, I have another trap type beat where I've got kicks, snares, a couple stacked snares, some perks, hi-hats. These are from different sample packs. I used some of the Memphis Trap hi-hats that I used in a previous video. Then I also have the effects kit going on with this section as well. Without the effects kit, it sounds like this. With the effects kit, this section also sounds a lot larger. It sounds like this. Up next, I've got the bass. For this whole track, I went with a Reese style bass that is made with wavetable. Following the Julian Earle tutorial, I have a wavetable going with two oscillators turned on that are barely tuned apart from one another. I've got them going into a reverb, into the amp sim on the rock setting, a compressor that's always sidechained to the kick. I have two different kicks, so there's the sidechain, that's why there's two compressors. And then I did something with the auto filter towards the middle of it just to try and like vary up the tone and take away the distortion in parts. But this bass on its own sounds like this. I wanted to make really big pads go like far and wide with other synths filling up more of the closer to the center of the stereo field, and they sound like this. I kind of started to stack like, you know, a perfect fifth for like thinking about D minor. And then I started to add in the minor third and the 9. So like E and F going against each other up an octave. And then just kind of started adding available tensions as they went up with that high C being the top thing. Aside from these pads, I've got some stuff going on with the synths. There are these bells. Even just those few notes makes this thing sound like mysterious or literally just kind of spooky. Aside from that, I have this vector grain going on. You can drag a sample into the vector grain, and then you can select the part of it that you want it to basically granulate. The vector grain on its own with the sample I have in there sounds like this. I've got reverb, overdrive, a compressor, an auto filter on that. But up front, I threw on an arpeggiator with the chord trigger for the Julian Earl video. I've got it set to a quarter note, and I have the gate getting bigger and smaller through this envelope MIDI that is before it. So that sounds like this. Up next, I've got the synth lead. Again, maybe the wavetable. Single oscillator. I've got it dialed up 24 semitones, so it's very high pitched. Messed around with this slope a little bit, making it have a little bit of that slant. First attack point is there. Going into reverb, going into a distortion pedal, going into a compressor, to an envelope filter. Up front, I assigned the room size of the reverb. Room size of the reverb is going to be interacting with this envelope MIDI up front, which kind of makes it do this cool flutter thing. And musically, what's going on here is I kind of have this pedal point melody going on where I've got like D at first with an octave, and then kind of starting to walk up and do like a little scalar melody. Then eventually that D goes up to F, and we have like a little bit of a counterpoint. So this melody is really wild sounding, and on its own, it sounds like this. I've also got a kind of distorted piano thing going on in this track where it's basically an arpeggiator going into a kind of arca sounding piano going into Rift. I've got Rift on with a preset called A Few Too Many. On its own, it sounds like this. Then last, I've got all the guitar activity. I have a section that it's a preset called Destruction, and it's this very wild sounding shoegaze tone from hell, and I've got two of them going on. They sound like this. I've got these both side chained to different kicks at different parts of the track. They'll kind of get that pumping effect. I didn't really want to shred a lot in this track because this style of music doesn't really call for it, but I did want to put this 1/16th note lick in one spot, and it sounds like this. I did that with my guitar rig here with my Line 6 Helix going into a generation loss pedal. But then I also used the Neural DSP Rabia X preset EDM Vibes, and I messed with that. EDM Vibes 2. Up next, I've got this cool spooky growl sound that's from my Roland GR55 unit. It's why I have a MIDI pickup on my guitar, is to get the sounds out of it. There's two melodies there that are harmonized against each other, and together they sound like this. I've got those running full send through a shimmer reverb. Before the shimmer reverb, they sound like this. With the shimmer, I have a blooper line where the original line itself sounds something like this. And I basically recorded these into my blooper pedal, and then I sped it up, chopped that layer in half, and then put them on top of each other. So putting those two together, warped in Ableton, sounds like this. The last thing I added in for the guitar stuff was the thunderstorm effect, which is off my GR55. This is a preset on the GR55 that literally just sounds like a thunderstorm. And then the last thing that I had to add in were vocals. What I did is I took two different Crystal Castles acapellas that I have running through this chain through Backmask, which is a really awesome plugin from Freak Show Industries. I've then got this chain going on with reverb, overdrive, and an auto filter. And I have the same thing going on with a different Crystal Castles acapella. On their own, they sound like this. Second one sounds like this. With the vocal chains both turned on, sound like this. The last thing that we've got that was definitely a big component of the Julian Earl video is on the master track. I've actually got a saturator with a hard curve going into a limiter, slamming it with 11 dB, and I've got the dry wet at 17%. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Keep an eye out for my next one where I'm going to take on a different style. With all that being said, let's hear the whole beat all together now.